What's up, you guys, and welcome back to another video. We are back with Wansee's Part 2, compilation March 2020. I hope everyone's having a great day, staying stable, staying solid. If you're new, welcome. My name is Jai, and we're back. So sit back, relax, and let's get into Part 2 of the compilation of 2020.
So before getting into the story itself, I want to give some backstory on something that happened when I was around the age of 9. I grew up in a village called Hotlax in the northern parts of Sweden. The road leading from my school to my home was a long one, where the local authorities had to put up lamps which emitted a very dim blue light. I always felt like a nervous wreck when I had to walk to and from my school.
Who wouldn't?
Both because, even with the lamps, the road was very dark, and also because I was bullied, so the bullies could have waited in the woods, right next to the road. It was one event that I remembered vividly during the winter of 1999. I'd slept poorly the night before and the math lesson had been killing me, so I barely felt awake when I was beginning to walk home. The lamps were off, which isn't really so weird, as the sensors for the lamps were pretty low, so any kid could have taken a flashlight, put it towards the sensors, and after a few seconds, the lamps would shut down for a few minutes. Since I was so tired, I'd closed my eyes when I started walking, but after walking about 20 meters on this road, I opened my eyes and noticed that the lamps were off, and I stopped.
No bus, no parents.
I was getting nervous.
No
I was
friends.
reasoning with myself and decided to push on. I was 10, and in my youthful arrogance,
10.
I thought I had reached the age where my balls should have been as hard as Duke Nukem's. Hotlax is a very quiet village, so I was barely hearing anything except the wind when this happened. To the left of the road is a very thick forest, and suddenly I could just hear this loud scream coming from it. It was very similar to the male scream you can hear in movies when someone's in huge pain.
Oh gosh.
With the speed of Usain Bolt, I ran as fast as I could towards my home without looking back.
Please.
Now we're jumping to late autumn 2011. My parents were on a trip to the Canary Islands and asked me to move into their house just for the week so I could take care of the dog. The thought of spending a whole week in my old room, listening to my old Mayhem CDs and eating pizza were just too good to be true. I always walked with my dog outside during midnight, because then I didn't have to take him outside again until the late morning hours. This time was no different, except I decided to walk a bit longer. I decided to walk along Oxelvägen and then follow Inimagsvägen towards Norra Hotlagsvägen. There are no lamps on the most parts of Inimagsvägen, so after leaving Oxelvägen, I stopped. I lit a cigar and told my dog to stay close to me. While walking along the road, I was just enjoying the fresh air and listening to the sound of leaves rustling in the trees. There's a pretty big area next to the road where they have chopped down a lot of trees. When I came to that area, my dog stopped and started barking towards the area I described. When I looked towards the area, I could see the silhouette of a person. The only visible parts were the hands. I said, "What the hell," with a pretty loud voice. The person turned around towards me. If I didn't know any better, I could have sworn that only the head and hands turned, as I didn't see any movements at all on the rest of the body.
Get out.
A white mask. The guy was wearing a white mask with a slit for each of his eyes. My dog started whimpering. The guy raised his right hand, with all of his fingers pointing towards me, and he screamed. It sounded like the exact same scream I had heard as a kid walking home from school that afternoon. What must have been survival instincts, I just started running.
Where the dog at?
When I had ran for 20 meters or so, I stopped to see if my dog was still with me, which he was, and then looked towards the spot the guy had stood.
Oh, good.
He wasn't there. He had moved to the spot where I
Bro, so
stood,
you just gonna leave
and
a
with his
dog?
hands down, but the mask still towards me. I started running again until I got to Nova Hotlagsvägen.
Never heard?
I'd never been so
Excuse me.
scared before. When I stopped, I was crying and my whole body was shaking. And then I walked home.
Well, damn. The scream that I heard at the empty house.
This happened when I was in my junior year of high school. I was picked as a
She's rocking
candidate
apples.
for a beauty contest, but I didn't know how to sing or do something out of the ordinary. So I decided to dance with two of my friends from class. We planned it in class and agreed to rehearse our choreography immediately.
The one who
There was
knows.
an empty house in front of my house that had a caretaker. My mom and the caretaker were friends, so I asked her if I could use one of their empty rooms to rehearse our dance. She agreed, but told us that the electricity doesn't work, so it was best to practice during the daytime. The house was pretty big. It was 3 stories tall with a
But
rooftop.
wouldn't it be better just to
However,
practice it in like...
this house was
if
unfinished.
I was looking, she can just practice
After
in front
class,
of the garage.
we all gathered in
all that
front of the
space.
house. It was around 4 p.m. I brought my laptop to play music, and we practiced for a while, and finally almost memorized it. Then I suggested that we should record our dance using my laptop's camera to see if we were making any mistakes or weren't synchronized. We were having fun with each other while dancing, and we even took pictures. After that,
I'm a
while
Barbie
taking a
girl
break, we
in a
played our
Barbie
dance
girl.
video. It was good at first. However, in the middle of us dancing, there was a woman's awful screaming in the background, like someone was being murdered.
What
The same continuous scream was going on and on while it was recording. It was already getting dark outside, and we were in shock that we couldn't even move our bodies at all. We knew that we were the only ones in the room. And of course, we would have stopped our practice if there was someone else there. And furthermore, we did not remember hearing anyone scream continuously. Shaking my hands with fear, I decided to rewind the video and play it again. The same screaming was in the video, but for some reason, this time her voice was much higher and very sharp. I've never heard that kind of horrific voice in my whole life. We then turned off my laptop, screamed, and ran outside of the house. When we got home, we explained it to my mom, but she thought we were being paranoid at first. But when I played the video, she was creeped out too. Mom didn't say anything, but forced me to delete the video. Ever since then, we never rehearse there anymore, and every time I look outside my window, I am scared that I might see the lady behind those screams.
Hey.
My name is Christian. This happened 3 years ago, and I was living in a dormitory with my best friend, Miko. I was a civil engineering student at that time, and Miko was a pharmacy student. The dormitory where we were staying had 9 rooms overall. Our room was quite small, but enough space for 2 people.
Cool.
The kitchen was at the opposite end of the entrance door, and we had no fire exit. The restroom was just at the left side of the kitchen, and the bed, that we even shared together, was on the right side. And there was a table in the middle where we used to eat, or make it as a study table. Our dormitory had rumors about ghosts in there, but we hadn't encountered any in our 2 years stay. So one day on Friday
As soon as I
morning,
hear that, I'm
before
staging
going to
the whole
school,
room.
we decided to put a hot cup of coffee in the sink. I know that was such a stupid thing, but we were curious about it. If this became empty when we came back from the school, then this is a haunted dormitory, I told him. Then we left for school, and soon I forgot about the coffee thing because I was quite busy with the calculus examination. After that, when I came back to the dorm, around 7 p.m., I saw Miko was sleeping in his bed. It was quite weird, since usually when I come back to the room, he was either playing games or cooking in the kitchen. But it didn't bother me, since it was a midterm season, and I thought that he might just be exhausted.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I remembered the mug of coffee that we put in the sink earlier in the morning. I put my bag on the table and headed straight to the sink. I saw the coffee was still full. So I said, "Told you, there's no ghost." So I poured out the hot coffee and washed the cup.
It was still hot?
Right after I washed the cup, my phone inside my pocket vibrated. Someone was calling me. I looked at the phone, and it was Miko.
Oh no.
I stared at the bed where Miko was still lying and
My
sleeping.
God.
I shouted, "Hey man, why are you calling me?" But
He didn't answer.
he didn't respond. So I thought inside my head,
Pick it up, see what
did
happens.
he leave his phone at school? I answered the call. "Hello?" To my shock and disbelief, it was Miko. It was his voice, and he said, "Dude, just eat without me if you're already hungry. I'm still at the mall buying our food supply for next week." I was frozen.
No.
I was so confused and terrified at the time until I
Get
got
out
the
the room.
courage to say, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, sorry, but I'm almost done at the counter. I'm just going to drive home now. If you can wait, let's eat together. Bye." And hung up.
Eat together.
I was there standing still in the kitchen and couldn't move while still looking at the man in the bed. Then I realized the cup of coffee. We left it in the morning. When I went to the dorm, it was not empty as we expected, but it was still hot. It should have cooled down. I looked back at the sink for 1 second, and to my terror,
Ooh.
when I looked again at the bed,
Vanished.
he was no longer there. I screamed, ran out of the room, and waited for my best friend. When Miko was finally home after 40 minutes, I told him what happened and saw his confused, scared reaction. After that night, we decided to transfer to another dormitory, and fortunately, nothing happened anymore in the new place.
That one incident.
But I will never
Oh,
forget
he
this
really
memory.
like,
Forever.
yesterday. How you know that's Miko? If she asks you the wrong question, I always answer no.
Ah! What a pleasant way to begin my 3 a.m. shift at Mercy Hospital. The first thing I did as I sat down was cut my finger. It was a paper cut. And despite working at one of the largest hospitals in the state, I couldn't find a single band-aid laying around. I sucked on my index finger like a vampire while I scrambled my desk for that band-aid. I found one. Purple. I'm a hospital receptionist, and all that means is I greet visitors, make appointments, and look nice. Well, as nice as a 30-year-old man who hasn't slept in hours can look. That night, as we call it, it was just me and a few nurses on the floor. Other than that, it was ghost quiet, except for the heavy, heavy rain. I sat back on the cheap recliner chair all receptionists get the honour of using. While adjusting my band-aid, I listened to the television mounted on the corner of the ceiling as it broadcasted a seemingly important message.
Authorities say the woman was last seen on Cedar Avenue.
I looked up to see if the television was showing any images of this strange woman. None. It was yet another crazy person with no name and no face who we were supposed to look out for. Not creepy at all.
Authorities also say the woman was reportedly walking around and asking people very, very bizarre questions.
I focused back on my desk and continued working, but I still listened as the news anchor went on and on. She continued.
The following statement was issued by an unidentified government official.
Listen carefully, folks. Whatever she asks you, answer no. Do not, under any circumstances, answer yes.
Officials won't comment further as to why, citing security clearance. Please are asking that you immediately call 911 if you deem anyone suspicious.
I thought that part of the coverage was quite odd, but I wasn't sure anything could scare me anymore. Working here at the hospital, I thought I'd seen it all. At the flash of the ruby red ambulance lights, I've seen people come in with severed arms, legs, fingers, people who somehow managed to scoop out their eyes, failed suicide attempts, and much, much more. You get used to it. My head was practically sunk into my desk as I filled out paperwork. That's when I heard something very subtle. Initially, I heard it coming from the front doors, the entrance. The automatic doors opened and closed, slamming against each other and sounding an obnoxiously loud thud each time. The very dim lighting I had surrounding my desk flickered incessantly. "Hello?" I called out, seated behind the safety of my desk. Only the whistling wind responded. "Hello?" I called out again. I felt obligated to check if someone was there, especially since it might have been someone who was injured and needed our attention. I reluctantly picked myself up from my chair and walked over to inspect. I nearly slipped and cracked my head open as the entrance floor was almost flooded from the rain. I noticed footsteps, wet shoe marks that seemed to come inside the hospital and then back out. I stood near the doors, poking my head outside, and looked. All I heard was the distant sounds of sirens and honking cars. The rain poured harder. The peace and quiet was disturbed within moments of me sitting back down. The automatic door started again, opening and closing, slamming shut, and letting in more rain as they did. But this time, I heard gentle footsteps make their way towards me, tapping closer and closer. Someone slowly emerged from the darkness between the entrance and front desk. A woman with drenched black hair approached, wearing a dark brown raincoat and a pair of boots that were too large for her toothpick legs.
That's the lady.
Her face was inundated with wrinkles and wet makeup. Her black eyeshadow smudged. Despite the heavy rain outside, she didn't seem to have bothered wearing her hoodie. "Hello, how can I help you, ma'am?" She didn't respond. She looked around, scanning and observing an unimpressive hospital. "Is there something I can help you with?" Still nothing. We engaged in a brief stare down, which she won. I looked down and pretended to gather important paperwork. "Are you here to visit someone?" Then finally, she responded, without talking. She simply nodded and then took a few steps forward, her hands hanging down her side. Her posture was unnatural, almost uncomfortable. "Okay, for now I need you to sign here, then you'll have to wait a few hours for visiting time to begin," I said, pushing forward a sheet of paper and a pen. She raised her arm to sign and then abruptly stopped. She seemed startled by something on the desk. She looked at me, tilted her head, and, with a smile that was as wide as her eyes, said, "Would you please move that for me?" I was confused at first, and then she pointed at it with her index finger, as drops of rainwater tapped against my desk while her arm hovered over it. I took the little crucifix we had at the front desk and put it in a drawer. The woman proceeded as if she was going to finally sign the paper and then stop before writing anything. She dropped the pen on the ground and stood there again, staring at me. She asked me a question. "Do you reject the Trinity?" "I'm sorry," I replied. For a few more uncomfortable moments, the woman stood there like an ancient statue. I had no idea what she meant by the question. "Ma'am, who exactly are you here to see? Family? Friend? What's your relationship with the patient?" Before I could finish talking midway through my question, the woman turned around and walked out the door, still smiling and her eyes as wide as I'd ever seen on a person. I went back to work and tried to move on, but her creepy mannerisms were trapped in my mind throughout the night. At around 4 a.m. I spotted one of the children in our hospital walking down the hall. "Nina, is that you?" I called out. All the kids in the hospital knew me. I was proudly considered one of the cooler employees. I let them break the rules. I brought them snacks upstairs and even told them scary stories, despite their predictable regret later on. The nurses would get angry with me every time I held one of my scary story nights. They always had a bunch of bed sheets to change the next morning. I only did these things for the kids when I wasn't busy, when it was a quiet night, and this was one of those
she relaxed on the
nights,
stories,
which of course was a good thing. Anyway, it was very odd to see Nina awake at that time, walking down those shadowy halls. She was absolutely terrified of the dark, and yet there she was. "Nina, is that you?" I squinted my eyes as I walked towards her. "Sorry, Matt," she began. "I don't want to be there anymore." She had dragged her blue blanket along with her, which was her way of gesturing to us that she wanted to move to another room. "The other kids bothering you again?" I asked. I took hold of her hand and began walking her back to the elevator. "Matt, please, don't make me go back up there. I don't like the new nurse." I stopped walking. "What?" I said, kneeling to Nina's level. "She keeps asking us the same question over and over. I said no so many times. I keep telling her no, but everyone else kept laughing with her and saying yes to her. Please, I don't want to go back up." Nina's words immediately played flashbacks inside my tired, overworked mind. Something about a strange woman going around and asking me stranger questions. I didn't pay enough attention to that broadcast to notice the woman, but even if I had, I thought she had left the hospital. I ditched the elevator and ran up a flight of daunting stairs, stomping against each step with all the force I could muster. I probably woke up all those sleeping employees. I was so loud. I opened the door to the children's room and couldn't believe my eyes. I checked each room, each one on each floor. I woke up my co-worker nurse and asked about the children. She couldn't find them either. We looked everywhere and put the hospital in lockdown. We set off all possible alarms and other emergency procedures. We didn't find them. All that was left behind were their clothes.
That was so crazy. If you expect something, and as soon as that lady left, you should have called the cops immediately. And like, you hear the news on the TV, and to your knowledge, should have been like, let me call the cops because this is weirding me out. I know you was frozen, but you should have did something. Yeah, and all these crazy people, like, it's crazy. It's crazy in them streets. So thank you guys again for tuning in. And be sure to like this video, comment, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay solid. It's your life. Do what you want and do it positively. Peace.